Today's video is sponsored by Claymore Miniatures. Miniatures have truly become an art form, and Claymore Miniatures has perfected it. Their handcrafted, high-quality sculptures will bring new life to any table. Subscribe to receive dozens of STLs each month. The Whispers in the Swamp bundle is rife with denizens that lurk within the murky waters waiting for brave heroes to stumble across. And October's bundle will bring you to the gates of the unknown. Unleash devils and cultists on your party. Will they be brave enough to venture through the Hellgate? The breathtaking scenery centerpiece that leads to the plane of the abyss. The STL files come in multiple sizes, 32mm, 75mm, and busts in 90mm, which are absolutely amazing. I didn't realize how badly I needed miniature busts in my life until I saw these. All the miniatures come pre-supported and ready to print. Subscribers receive new miniatures every month, and new subscribers get a welcome pack. Subscribe now in the link below to start printing your own amazing miniatures at home. And now, what you're here for. The most heartbreaking and unique character in D&D history. I was asked to tell this story by many people, all asking for details after I mentioned the mystery surrounding our fighter, who is a literal teddy bear. My party finished a character-focused story arc and got the answers to a mystery that had been haunting them since Session 1. Now that the arc is over, and I don't have to worry about spoiling the twist for my players who use D&D subreddits, I can finally spill the beans. Gather round for a plot twist that took 57 weekly sessions and had my players throwing theories the entire time. Let me tell the tale of Mr. Dobbles, a Rune Knight fighter, a 14-inch teddy bear, a toy that doesn't exist. His story arc was written with an emphasis on old Gaelic fairy tales and Macbeth. You'll see how. I got a little dramatic with the storytelling here, so buckle up for a long one. Away we go. His story begins. Mr. Dobbles woke up on the floor of a child's bedroom. He stood up, a teddy bear with marbles for eyes and a stitch across his belly, and noticed that the room was on fire. Fiona was gone, and he didn't know why or where. He ran down the stairs and saw Mom and Dad dead, blood pooling around them as flames licked at the roof and the rafters groaned. He grabbed Dad's longsword, a family weapon, and barely dragged it out of the house. He hears hoofbeats in the distance, and the sound of Fiona screaming. He runs, but the longsword is too heavy to run with. He drags it to the hollow of the old tree, throws it in, and runs while the home burns behind him. Days pass, and he loses the trail. Wandering by the river, traveling only as fast as something full of stuffing and under 2 feet can. He gets splattered with mud and rain, following the direction he last remembers seeing the hoofprints. After a week of barely any progress, he curses that he couldn't go faster. Then he feels a spark of magic in him, and he changes for the first time. Mr. Dobbles walks over to the river and looks at his reflection. He has pale skin, red hair, and freckles just like Fiona. He looks to be about 13 or so. He could pass for a brother. But he still has the features of a teddy bear. His eyes are still dark, sightless marbles, and the stitched-up scar on his belly looks horrific at this size. After stealing laundry off a clothesline and dressing himself, he starts to walk, much faster this time. He learns that people are too scared to speak to him if they see his non-existent eyes, so he gets a hooded cloak and learns not to look up. In the city of Ruag, he asks anyone who will listen, "Have you seen my sister?" Nobody has. Plenty say a man in dark armor rode by on a horse, and some heard a child scream in the night, but none are certain. Most bolted their doors, fearing that grim fae would slip into their homes if they stopped to gawk. Mr. Dobbles has no other leads, so he keeps going in the last direction he remembers the hoofprints were heading. He learns he has magic, just like the stories Dad told at bedtime about the brave Rune Knights of the kingdom. He can summon power from them, drawing on the energies of the ancient Feywild. But these powers don't tell him where Fiona is, so he keeps walking. He picks up a discarded sword and shield, and keeps walking. He robs a corpse of its chainmail, and keeps walking. He crosses the highlands, the moors, and the woods, and keeps walking. For weeks he just keeps walking. Anyone he meets is asked the only question he has. "Have you seen my sister?" He walks southeast without stopping for weeks. Down from the highlands, across the moors, and finally out of the kingdom, into the theocracy. The theocracy is at war with the Empire, and tensions are high. When soldiers find a child without eyes, they don't listen to him. He begs them to let him go. He's only looking for his sister. They don't care. He's chained to a log in a soldier camp next to 3 other outcasts. With nothing else to do, they introduce themselves. Mr. Dobbles meets Aziza al-Nazir, the paladin, Doina Botezatu, the bard, and Elsive Sergland, the wizard, all in the wrong place at the wrong time. They decide to wait for their chance to escape together. It comes faster than they expected. A war beast, a monster fitted with a collar that drives them to attack anything that isn't the Empire, breaks through the perimeter. As soldiers fight and die, the 4 prisoners work their bonds. Mr. Dobbles tells them not to panic and changes into a toy bear. His manacle's empty. He changes back and frees the others. They start to flee until another man dies to the war beast. There's a moment of tension as the 4 stand between carnage and freedom. They seize their weapons and choose carnage. The war beast dies, and the surviving soldiers let the 4 of them go. They decide the nearest village is the best place to go. They should stick together. The fight showed them they were all capable, if they worked as a team, so the party is formed, and they head into town. Over drinks, they share their past. Mr. Dobbles reveals he doesn't have one, just a goal, to find Fiona and keep her safe. That night, he dreams of fighting for his life as the house catches fire. He also dreams of being a toy owned by Fiona. They feel different but the same. He remembers being her toy and watching her grow, but he was never alive until recently. Understanding nothing, he climbs onto the roof and watches the stars fade. They've been together for months, killing trolls, saving farmers. Lots of work for mercenaries when war is about. The 3 of them offer to help him, but Mr. Dobbles has no information to give them. He doesn't know her parents' names. They were mom and dad, nothing else. In the capital of the theocracy, they pay a priest to reach out through the gods and find Fiona. He scries on the girl, and it works, at first. Mr. Dobbles sees a room of ruined stones, thick with fog. Fiona sits on a moldy mattress, shivering. She looks up at him like she can see him watching. Then her eyes flash and she smiles with an evil grin and tells him to leave her alone. The scry ends. She's alive and she isn't herself. On the contrary, something is wearing her skin. In the library, they find stories. Stories of fae that eat children and leave more fae in their beds. Stories of fae who rip your teeth and pay with silver. They find a story about fairies who take children and make them different. Changelings. Mr. Dobbles smiles a bit. He has a lead. He can work with a lead. The fire burns low. They've been walking for days through the wilderness. More war, more refugees. Less people to pay for work. The last job paid them in lumps of cold iron. Odd metal, he said. They say it kills fairies, burns them good. Mr. Dobbles held out his hands to take them, and they burned against his fingers. The whole party is confused. Is he a fairy? The wizard gathers up his arcane power to identify the teddy bear. As he's done so many times, he slips into an endless vault of books. He runs his thumb along their spines and pulls one out. He finds nothing at all. Perplexed, he opens another. Nothing. In a panic, he pulls volume after volume, seeing nothing again and again. The wizard comes to realize what it is he is seeing. It is nothing. The stark absence of anything. Mr. Dobbles, whatever he is, doesn't seem to exist. The spell ends. The wizard falls back, blood dripping from his eyes. Mr. Dobbles reaches out to help him. What did you see? The wizard stares at him in shock. Nothing at all. The party sits in the stands at a traveling circus. It is a front for smugglers, and they just delivered some ill-gotten goods. As the spotlights sweep over the audience, Mr. Dobbles freezes. There, across the ring from them, the red hair, the freckled face. She looks older than she should be, but it is Fiona. He's certain of it. She looks at him and gives him a wicked smile. When the spotlight illuminates her again, she is gone. Mr. Dobbles runs after her, his party at his side. On the riverbank, they find her with a tall man holding a cold iron sword. A fight breaks out. Magic swirls around Fiona as she unleashes waves of dark thorns. Mr. Dobbles fights the man with the sword and loses. Badly. His arm severed, stuffing falling out. The man taunts him. You used to be better. When he awakens, they're gone. The party saved his life. Fiona and the man got away. They stole something from the smugglers, some kind of gem. Unsure of what it does, the party digs up where it came from and sets out. That night, Mr. Dobbles dreams of the burning house. He stands and fights against grim fae, until a tall man in armor cuts him down. As he hits the floorboards of the child's bedroom, he remembers this is where he woke up, and darkness claims him. Nearly a year has passed. The party are lauded as mercenaries, heroes even. Cialer, who met them on the last job, joins them for good. They round the mountains and reach the kingdom, where Fiona was taken from. Any good detective knows to look back at the scene of the crime. The burned remains of the house hold no answers. The family longsword is recovered from the ashes of the old tree. Following rumors about a magical beast that answers questions, They find a dragon woven from moonlight. They prove their worth, and Mr. Dobbles asks what he is. He is told he doesn't have a name, and so he doesn't exist. He asks a different question. How do you kill a fairy? When a fae dies, their soul returns to the Feywild where they revive. But cold iron destroys the name, and that soul must become something new. In that memory, cold iron is what killed Mr. Dobbles. But why, then, did he wake up in the burning house? They visit the graves of Mom and Dad, interred by the High King as a sign of respect. And on there, Mr. Dobbles remembers a memory that doesn't feel like his. A pixie squire that swore to defend Fiona, the daughter of his knight, a young dad. A fairy promise, not easily broken. Mr. Dobbles falls to his knees. His head aches. He fights in the burning house. He's struck down by the man in armor. A small pixie, wings severed, dying to defend his master in his charge. The pixie is crushed into the floorboards of a child's bedroom. The cold iron boot burns. His name is gone. The pixie promised. The pixie died. His soul, nameless, stuck. It can't move. It can't stay here. It knows nothing. It is nothing. It doesn't exist. This piece of a soul can't help anyone. It needs another piece. Here in this burning house, the girl is snatched from her bed for reasons unknown. She screams and drops her teddy bear. Something so beloved surely holds a piece of the owner's soul. Small, but enough. What remains of a nameless pixie joins with the love of a child. In moments, memories weave together. Memories burned into the bear of its years with Fiona. The bear stands upright among the flames and runs from the burning house. It doesn't even notice the bloodstains on the floor, where a pixie was crushed underfoot. He's so small. The world is so big. But out there in the world, a girl needs her teddy bear, and it will find her no matter what stands in its way. The party uncovers the plot. Fiona is a child of special heritage, her mother from a clan of ancient blood. She has magic that makes her strong enough to be the host of an awful thing. The Grim Archfey, the Blackthorn Queen, the Lady of Moonless Nights. With Fiona as a vessel, she will step out of the Feywild for good and walk in the world, and she will bring the wild hunt with her. All she has to do is overshadow the girl completely. With the stolen gem and the rising blood moon, she has everything she needs. With what allies they have, the party charges the hideout. Tides of grim Fey block their path, but they fight on. The Dullahan falls to their fury, and the Witch Sisters are torn apart. In an old ruin on the foggy moors, they arrive a moment too late. Fiona is possessed, but not in the way she was before. This union is complete. The Grim Archfey and Fiona are one. They will live together or die together. The party is weak. Mr. Dobbles is on death's door. Holding himself up with his sword, he stares at the face of Fiona and the eyes of the awful thing that has taken her. She taunts his weakness. She mocks his failures. Even if he dared to swing his blade again, the blow would take Fiona as well. Cackling into the night, she calls dark powers into being. The Grim Archfey laughs. You have lost. Nothing that exists can bring her back to you now. Mr. Dobbles stands. You're right, but I don't exist. He tosses the sword aside. He falls forward and embraces the child. She's gone over a year without her mother, her father, or even her teddy bear. It's only love, but it is enough. The Grim Archfey screams as the impossible happens. Instead of overshadowing Fiona, Fiona overshadows her. Standing in the place of this awful being is a young girl clinging to her toy. The moon shines down and the nightmare is over. 2 months later, Mr. Dobbles walks Fiona to an arch of standing stones. The young girl is the new Grim Archfey, and there is little she can do from the mortal plane. Mr. Dobbles needs to stay. In the months it took to find Fiona, he met many children who needed help. The war monsters on the loose, cultists on the prowl, there are 100 things terrorizing kids in the night. He wants to save them all. She understands. The party watches as Mr. Dobbles gives one final hug, and Fiona steps through the arch and into the Feywild. After a long minute, he turns to go, and the party follows him into the woods on their next adventure. And that's where we ended our session. So this basically turned into a dramatic retelling of the first 57 sessions of this campaign, solely focused on the events that related to Mr. Dobbles' backstory and the resolution of his plot thread. There was a lot of other stuff going on. They hunted a white dragon, got a city exploded around them, impersonated a bullywug god, etc. My little brother made Mr. Dobbles after getting my permission to play a homebrew awakened familiar race he found. As we wrote the backstory together, I realized we had created an unholy union of Toy Story and Macbeth, and it was fantastic. He loved the Fey aspects of his character, so he changed the flavor of the Rune Knight subclass to be about fairies rather than giants. The best part about running this story arc was my players shooting fan theories of what Mr. Dobbles was. Most popular ones at the table were 1. He was her father, inhabiting the teddy bear to save her. 2. He was her actual father, a fairy, because they suspected Fiona was half fae. 3. The soul of her brother who had died in the womb. 4. Fiona had innate magic that animated the teddy bear in her hour of need, and the spell never ended. Absolutely beautiful and amazing story. Tell us about your unique characters in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, All Things D&D. Stay tuned for more amazing Dungeons & Dragons content.